Yo, what is good, MMA gang? We are back here to break down another UFC fight card with UFC 328 Chimaev versus Strickland. Man, I know a lot of us have been waiting for this one, just seeing Khamzat finally getting to defend his belt, and of course against anybody other than the loudmouth Sean Strickland, which, he's pretty polarizing. You either love or hate the guy. But Strickland, he brings that unique style with his jab and teep man mentality. So it's going to be interesting to see what tricks he has up his sleeve for Khamzat Chimaev. In the co-main, we also do have a banger at flyweight between two of the youngest studs out here just doing it. Josh Van and Tatsuro Taira, both just so young in age. I think the youngest combined age for a title fight ever in UFC history. And man, with Tyra just bringing his grappling aspect and Josh Van with his crisp boxing combos, it's going to be interesting to for real see how that fight ends up playing out as well. But yeah, just from top to bottom, this card is pretty stacked. The UFC and Paramount, they wanted to do their thing with this one, knowing a lot of people are going to pop out and watch it. They wanted to make sure to give us a good card, so hopefully, they continue this quality. So far in the year, they've been slacking overall with some of these cards. I feel like some of the fight nights overall, and some of the pay-per-views, it feels like they've been holding out some of the talent to decide how they want to build future cards, and it's been giving us some, lackluster prelims or, some boring fight nights. So they need to get their shit together, get their matchmaking together, and hopefully we can get consistency like this. So off the bat, I'll just mention how the Jan Blachowicz fight versus Guskov, the rematch, was called off. Jan ended up tearing his meniscus, which is unfortunate at his age, but it'll be interesting to see bro come back. I know I saw him mention that I think he's already gotten the surgery for it, and he's in recovery mode now, I believe. I saw him talking on Twitter the other day saying he had some time to do a Q&A. And was just letting the fans ask him questions. So, maybe he'll come back against Yuri. There's a few matchups they can really do it, bro. So we'll see where he comes back. And Guskov as well, he's kind of rising up the rankings. He has that mean striking style, a lot of power. So, hopefully they're able to rebook bro a fight soon so he can keep trying to, make his way towards the belt. But yeah, guys, we got a lot to talk about here. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and just fill out my predictions as we go on this one and, get into the nitty-gritty of things as one does. So, yeah, starting off the card, they did give us Clayton Carpenter versus Jose Ochoa. So this is a good fight at 125. I kind of like it whenever they put, fights from the same weight classes, like, the co-main and main, whatever title fights are on the card, whenever they put, other contending fights. So it's kind of like, okay, we know the future is coming, and this is the present right now. And with this matchup, man, with Ochoa, okay, he's coming off the loss to Almabayev. He was able to KO Cody Durden, who just got a good dub this past week, so shout out to bro. And he lost to Loner, which is, nothing to scoff about. I remember going into that matchup, I thought it would actually be a little tougher for Loner. Ochoa was on a good streak at that point, but Loner, proved to be the better fighter at the moment. But Ochoa, I think he has a lot of places to go. He's repping Brazil. Fuck, did I say Brazil? He's repping Peru. And yeah, okay, so his debut was against Loner too. That's a tough matchup to, come into the UFC off bat with. But yeah, bro was able to pick up a win after that, and then, he lost to Almabayev. But Almabayev's at least, a lower ranked opponent. So for his third fight, not too bad. And then Clayton Carpenter, I know I've seen him fight a few times. Okay, he lost to Filau. Tagir Lembekov beat him about a year and 3 months ago. And he has some few decent wins. So he actually beat Edgar Chairez on the Contender Series. Not bad. He's fighting out of Phoenix. On this one, guys, yeah, for sure, I think I'm going to have to lean Ochoa going into this one. I might go decision just because, they're 125ers, don't have the biggest pop. But yeah, bro's actually impressed me decently in his run, even though he's only 1-2 in the UFC. But yeah, I think he has places he can go. He can still get better. He's only 25 years old, so he's still really young. But yeah, I'm going to go bro in this one. And then right after that, we got Khamzat's boy, Bangas. Oh my God. I've heard people say this, but now that I'm trying to say it, I'm like, wait, how do you pronounce it? Bangasir. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to just call him Susurkayev. Thought I knew his first name, but now just seeing it spelled out is making it so much harder. But Susurkayev is taking on Santos. And I don't even know too much about Santos. I do remember his last fight against Danny Barlow. I was pretty high on Barlow. He just seemed like a really cool guy. I liked his, strong left hook, but kind of having your nickname left hook or left hand to God, I believe. I feel like gave it a little bit too much away that, that's his main game plan. And yeah, Danny Barlow's kind of gone on a down streak since then, unfortunately. I'm not even sure if he's still in the UFC. He might have lost 3 in a row with the Santos fight being the third, or that might have been 2, but I hope bro can make a bounce back. He was always hella exciting to me. And yeah, with this one, I've seen some people saying Santos, can bring some surprises to Susurkayev. I low-key feel like Susurkayev, he's a pretty polarizing fighter because, since he's Khamzat's boy, he's gotten thrown straight into the mix, and the UFC are kind of pushing bro. But I actually feel like he is really good. He just, is for sure way too cocky at the moment. He has a real cocky type of fighting style. He's only 25. So, he feels like he has the world in the palm of his hands. But, yeah, he has a cool striking style. More of a kickboxer, I feel like, or taekwondo. Uses his kicks beautifully. But his boxing defense, he's already shown, you can land some shots on him and, he can get into danger being a little too cocky there. But overall, I think I'm going to still go Susurkayev. Just training out of the Khamzat camp and, having the really good striking overall, I think he'll be able to deal with Santos. I think Susurkayev has gotten finishes, if I believe. Yeah, he's gotten finishes, even submission since Contender Series. But I might go decision in this one. I've heard a few people, saying that Santos is decent. I mean, he lost to Ozzy Diaz, which isn't even that good, but I can see Susurkayev putting him away for sure. Either head kick or, some type of TKO, KO, but I'm going to just go decision on this one. And then after that, we have Pat Sabatini versus William Gomez. So Pat Sabatini, I always remembered him from his fight with Diego Lopez, which is his last loss. But since then, he's put together quite the win streak. Jonathan Pierce, who was decent. Joe Anderson Brito, which was a big upset. A lot of people were high on Brito. And Sabatini was able to put him, beat him comfortably, I'd say. And then Chepe Mariscal, which was another, Chepe is decent himself as well. He's pretty good. So he's put together a decent 3-fight win streak for sure. And then William Gomez, I for sure have seen him. He's like the pride of France. Oh, okay. Now I remember with the Brito fight, a lot of people thought he robbed Brito in that one. And it should have gone to him. I remember watching it, but low-key felt like it could have went either way. Wasn't really too pressed on who they would have given that one to, but I can see people saying how that was a robbery. And then he lost to Hyder Emil right after that, split decision. And then he beat Robert Ruchala, bouncing back 7 months ago after that loss. So, he's pretty decent for sure. Hanging with some good guys. Usually not really able to, do enough to put himself over the edge with the split decision. And Brito, he got the dub, but still a close fight and then lost the split decision. So I feel like he has that type of style where he's not really dominating guys. He's able to just bring the fight to them wherever they want to take it. But yeah, for this one, I'm for sure going Sabatini. He's really impressed me since taking that loss to Diego Lopez, which even made Lopez's resume age even better. Shout out to the broski. He's 35. Gomez is 28. So, the youth is on his side. But I think the veteran will do enough to win this one. For some reason, I can see him submitting Gomez, possibly. I'm not sure if he's been submitted in his career or not. But I think for now, I might just go decision with Sabatini. I think, he for sure has enough to get it done. And then after that, we have Roman Kopylov versus Marco Tulio, which is another pretty good fight from the UFC. Kopylov, I was pretty bought in on his hype train a few years back. I think leading into the Hernandez fight, I remember I was trying to tell some of my friends, like, yo, I like this guy. You know, he's Russian, but he doesn't just wrestle. He actually has this nasty kickboxing style. And then he just goes out there and gets fucking obliterated by Fluffy and then, choked out. That was a nasty one for Fluffy. And then he was able to beat Cesar Almeida, which is aging really well. Almeida's looking decent himself. Then that Chris Curtis one was nasty, getting the last second head kick KO over him. But recently, they've been feeding him to the wolves a little bit. The Costa one was a little surprising. I thought Costa was done for at that point. But he actually got a good bounce back win over him and started showing that nasty body kick that he has in his repertoire. And then they gave him a Gregory Rodriguez RoboCop. That was a good-ass fight as well. RoboCop did end up getting the unanimous decision, but I think Kopylov, he started coming into that fight a little too late. I know round 1, he was getting pieced up. But I feel like round 2, he was starting to get his range a little better, and by round 3, he was making it competitive. So, he has the skills to pay the bills. I feel like he's a slightly small middleweight. And with Tulio, he was on a demon run. He KO'd Trayshawn Gore, which is aging well. Ihor Proteria. And then he was coming off the Contender Series right before that. Then he got destroyed by COD. That was nasty. I think I might have picked Tulio going into that one just because the run he was on. But, yeah, COD just obliterated, bro, pretty bad. He took some, for sure, life-changing damage in that one. But in this one, man, I think I'm going to go Kopylov low-key right now, just going through all that. I feel like he has the grit and the experience at middleweight. He's been here for a good little while now. So I think I would lean, bro, to be able to put away Tulio, who, he's big and powerful, but I feel like he's not the most responsible on the feet. And he can get caught, as we've seen in his last fight. So I think I'm going to still lean Kopylov by decision. I think Tulio's probably been in the gym, trying to patch some of his holes. That was only 5 months ago, and that was a pretty brutal beating. But so maybe Kopylov can whip up a head kick or something to put a bro away, because, yeah, he is one of the fastest head kicks in the game. Yeah, I like bro's kicking game a lot, but, yeah, I'm going to just go decision for now. And then after that, we got Battle of the Unks, or the OGs. We got Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. Let me get a little refresher on their recent fights. Okay, so, Jared Gordon lost to Rafa Garcia on that Noche card. When he got into that car accident and still fought the same day. Shout out to bro. It shows his grittiness, but, both of these guys are real gritty. He was able to beat Thiago Moises. He lost a split decision to Nasbrat. And then he beat Mark Madsen by KO. Yeah, and I know Mark had some hype back in the day, just with his style and stuff coming onto the scene, but then injuries, hurt his stock a little bit. And then 3 years ago, he had a head clash with Bobby Green. I don't even remember that fight. And then Jim Miller, he's that crafty unk who still got it. Lost to Bobby Green. Was able to guillotine Damon Jackson. And then he lost to Chase Hooper. Still looked really decent in that fight. Was still fighting through, but Chase, overall just a step ahead in the ground and was able to, get that decision over him. Man, yeah, they're both really good still, even at their old age. Jim Miller 42 though, Gordon 37. I think I lean Gordon in this one just because he's a little younger. They're both really gritty, but I feel like Gordon has less miles on him. Probably by decision. I can see them, just being a good scrap. Both of them maybe trying to work their wrestling too, and maybe being a stalemate a little bit there. But yeah, I can see Gordon edging it out on that one. And then right after that, we have Grant Dawson versus Mateus Rembecki, a banger at the 155-pound weight class. Or maybe banger's a little bit too much, but, a clash of two really good prospects, in my opinion. Grant Dawson might not have the most exciting style, but he still, is a very skilled martial artist. He's coming off the KO to Torres, which was tough for him to go through, but he has some good wins, like Ferreira, Rafa Garcia he KO'd, who's on a good run now, Joe Selecki, and then Bobby Green caught him right when he was, trying to make his push towards the rankings and, really make his name. That was a crazy one. And Rembecki's coming off of a tough streak. All his recent fights have been wars, though. He just has that style where he ends up getting into these wars. Ludovic Klein beat him. Then he had the war with Chris Duncan that was pretty close. The war with Rebecca that was close. It was one of the fight of the years that year. And then he got KO'd by Diego Ferreira. I feel like Diego had just like a crafty veteran performance in that one, was just able to overwhelm Rebecca. And then he was able to submit Roosevelt Roberts. So, he always comes to scrap, and he's very skilled in his striking. He's about a year older than Grant Dawson, with Dawson having the reach advantage and the height advantage in that one. Dawson, his wrestling is really good. I'm trying to think I think Ludovic Klein for sure used his wrestling to nullify some of Rimbexi's game. Oh, man. I kind of want to lean Rimbexki just because I feel like his striking can overwhelm Dawson. But at the same time, I do feel like Dawson can use a kind of wrestling and ground and pound type of game plan to really overwhelm Rimbeki and get the dub. But I think I'm going to lean Rimbeki in this one. I feel like, he's been through these gritty wars, and, he's really hard to put away for the most part. So I feel like he can bring a little chaos to Dawson and maybe get the TKO in this one. I'm going to possibly go by round 2. Can see maybe a round 2 TKO. The first round, maybe Dawson is getting a little pieced up and then gets him down on the mat and just, lays on top of him. Maybe he's trying to push for subs and different things like that. A little ground and pound, but overall, Rimbeki stays safe. And then going into round 2, Rimbeki is able to, put the pressure on Dawson and put him away. So I'm going to go round 2 TKO for Rimbeki in that one, I think. And then the underrated banger of the card, Yoel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. This is barely his second fight in the UFC, coming off the sub over Neil Magny, which was really impressive, I think. Magny's shown at that welterweight division, he's the cream of the crop when it comes to the grappling and sub game. He's, giving guys tough problems there, and, he was able to make his name and just stay ranked for as long as he did, just off being dangerous in that area. And then Joel Alvarez, is one of the most exciting fighters, unranked fighters as well, in the UFC. I feel like he's had to go on such a long streak of names. His first fight at 170 against Luque, maybe wasn't the most impressive, but Luque, the crafty veteran, so he didn't make that fight any easy for Alvarez. But before that, just straight KOs, submissions. And going into the Luque fight, I bet or put a little parlay on Alvarez to get a finish, and then, goes to decision. So that sucks. But, for the most part, he's always just finishing dudes. He has such a dangerous arsenal. I think it might be his only loss. I'm not remembering at the moment if he has any other in the UFC. But, yeah, he lost to Arman 4 years ago. Arman just, put on a nasty TKO. Ground and pound over, bro. Yeah, that wrestling was just a little too much for Alvarez, and Arman was able to put him away in that one. So on Amosov's side, he's really a Bellator native. He beat Douglas Lima, sorry, and then Logan Storley, who just got a dub this past Saturday as well. He lost to Jason Jackson, who I know is like a bigger guy, sometimes fights at middleweight, I believe, as well. Maybe I'm just made that up out of my ass, but he's a big, powerful guy. He's gotten some good rounds in with Kamaru Usman, so I know he's really good. So he's able to be put away, maybe on the feet if he gets a little too reckless. Oh, man, yeah, this is actually a really good matchup because, Amosov has the good wrestling, good grappling. As he showed, he went into Magny's guard and into his world and was able to put him away with an anaconda choke. And I believe that's like one of Amosov's signature chokes is that anaconda choke. He's really, really skilled in that one. And one of his best submissions in his arsenal. Man, yeah, and this one is so tough to choose for real. But I think I gotta lean Joel Alvarez just because of the experience he has in the UFC. He's so deadly everywhere, really. Even his submissions are pretty good. I feel like if he tries to play too much in Amosov's game and, he gets taken down, he's trying to play off his back, do a lot of jiu-jitsu, he could get in danger and start getting ground and pounded and, elbows smashed in his face. But I feel like he'll be able to do enough to maybe get a decision. feel like he doesn't have as much pop at welterweight as he did at 155, but he's still so technical in the striking that I'm going to lean to him getting the decision dub over Amosov. And then going into the last prelim of the night, we are going to have Atiba Gautier, the GOAT, going against Ozzy Diaz. And this is a fight that was rescheduled after Diaz pulled out when they were supposed to fight last time. And Gautier ended up fighting Puliev instead. And, in that Puliev fight, it showed that Gautier, maybe he's not the world beater we all exactly thought. I still think he's, one of the GOATs. I've put him on parlay on literally every fight, and he always comes through for whatever I need. So I'm really riding the train of bro. Yeah, I'm he's looks like I think they be calling him Ngannou Near. He's just jacked dude at middleweight. It just brings this powerful style. But, it just seems inevitable that if someone's able to wrestle him and get him down and get him tired, that might be his weakness. But until I see it happen, I'm going to still be riding heavy with bro. So far, they've really only thrown him cans in the UFC. But, they're letting him build his confidence up and, take things slow, which I like. Now he's going against Ozzy Diaz, who is coming off that win against Santos. He got KO'd against Zhang Mingyang, coming down from light heavyweight. So, he's kind of fought at two different weight classes in the UFC so far. I'm for sure going Atiba to, I think, get the KO again in this one. Ozzy seems to be down to scrap, but yeah, it just feels like overall they're just feeding Atiba a few names to get his confidence up, get his experience up, and really build his name, build him as one of the next stars, possibly in that middleweight division. So yeah, I can see maybe, based off his last fight, Atiba maybe struggling again and, just looking straight for the knockout. I think he needs to throw more body punches. He tends to headhunt a lot. But yeah, I think still against Ozzy Diaz, I think he'll have enough to get it done for sure. So yeah, I'm going Gautier on that one. You can lock that on your parlay. And then we have King Green versus Jeremy Stevens. Bobby, who tends to take some losses but will bounce back with these dubs. That Zell Huber win was crazy. He really just put the pressure on bro and just knocked him the fuck out. Yeah, that was a nasty one. And then before that, the Lance Gibson Jr. win was actually a split decision. But yeah, Bobby, just the way he was walking down Lance Gibson was crazy. And then he went on to beat Chase Hooper earlier this year. So even he's pretty good himself, at least pretty decent. But yeah, Bobby, he has that hands down style. He doesn't give a fuck. The hood style, he'll walk you down and, put them hands in your face. He's an OG at this point. I think I for sure got to lean Bobby. Shout out to Jeremy. He has power in his hands too. The hardest hitting 145er. But yeah, up a weight class from his natural weight class. And against Bobby, he could catch Bobby just since he keeps his hands down. But yeah, I think Bobby will get to him before he can get to Bobby. I'll go around 3 KO. I think maybe they'll, get into a little scrap. Both of them will have their moments, but I think Bobby will really put that pressure that last round and put Stevens away. And then after that, we are going to have Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. This has been a really, interesting matchup to just think about since they moved it to this card. I think originally it was supposed to be the headliner for the Aljo and Zalal fight night, and they ended up moving it to this card to stack it up a little more. And both of these guys are coming off pretty big losses. They were on good runs. Sean Brady on a 3-fight win streak ever since losing to Bilal. And then they end up throwing him in there against Michael Morales when he kind of already deserved a title shot at that point. And, he got KO'd by Morales, just kind of walked him down and started throwing big hooks and put bro away, which was pretty crazy. And then Buckley, he reinvented himself at 170 pounds, going on a little streak of his own. Even put away Colby Covington, which, Colby hasn't done much in recent years, but I still think that was a pretty good win. He really just walked down Colby and, just put them fists in his face and got the TKO stoppage on that one. But then they threw him in against Usman. Usman in his return fight, coming off, all the injuries he had been through and just being out and inactive for the last few years after the wars with Leon and then the Khamzat fight. And Usman was actually able to get it done in a unanimous decision. That was one of my favorite fights to watch live last year. Just seeing Usman and Unk still got it type of performance. But yeah, I think a lot of people just underestimate Usman or underrate him at this point in his career. Yeah, he's older, but he, in my opinion, he still showed he still has all the skills. He's still able to really compete with these guys, and maybe his striking didn't look as sharp as it always does, or as it has looked in the past. But Buckley, he brings a KO threat. Like, he's big, athletic, fast hands, and yeah, just I feel like Usman played it a little more smart on that one. Knowing Buckley's just throwing all these wild punches to try to knock him out at any moment. So he didn't get to, show off his striking as much. But, yeah, just overall wouldn't have been smart for him to get into a firefight in that one. So, yeah, I feel like people underestimated Usman. And even when I'm looking at Brady's recent fights, he lost to Bilal in a TKO. And it's kind of like, Bilal doesn't really finish anybody. And he was able to finish Brady. Then he beat Gastelum, which, Gastelum really hasn't done shit in recent years. So how good is that win? He beat Burns, which I think was overall good and dominant win, but Burns is already at the declining part of his career at that point. Still solid win to have on your resume, but, it's not like he was an up-and-coming contender. And then he got the choke on Leon, which, I predicted down to a T going into that fight. I think it was originally supposed to be Leon versus JDM, and they ended up calling JDM to fight Balas, which is crazy how, the timelines end up working out. But yeah, overall dominated Leon in the boxing, down to, getting him down and Leon making low IQ decisions, going for his own takedowns. And yeah, Brady got him in that nasty guillotine choke and was able to put him away. And then, yeah, the loss to Morales. So Brady for sure has, some of the best grappling in this weight class. And he's for sure one of the top fighters in this weight class. But in this one, I think I'm gonna lean Buckley. I think a lot of people underestimate Buckley's overall game and how good he is just because of his streak. I know they're not the most impressed by, which, okay, cool. Luque, even since then it was like, okay, is Luque just washed, which he's not in his prime, so but he's still come back and got him wins and giving guys like Joel Alvarez a good fight. So yeah, I think Buckley's a little underrated. Bruzy Boyev, I think Buckley's the only one to beat him in the UFC so far. Stephen Thompson got KO'd by Buckley, and, Wonder Boy has really good striking, and Buckley was able to, find that KO in round 3 and really, hunt it after it. And then the Colby fight as well, and then, even in the Usman fight, there were some scares in that round 5 when Buckley was trying to leave it all out there, but Usman, just stayed smart, kept his wits about him. But yeah, I think Brady is, very skilled. The submission games, brings an aspect that nobody can really mess with him. Will low-key be a difficult matchup for Islam. But yeah, I think in this matchup, just off Buckley seeing what Morales did to him, I think he'll just walk him down eventually. If he overswings and Brady gets to his hips and takes him down, I think it will be over pretty quick because, yeah, it's just going to be hard for Buckley to get it back to his feet, which is, I feel like the way his build is, having a heavier upper body and, not the biggest legs. Yeah, Brady, I think, will be able to hold him down, especially if Buckley just tries to use his brute force to get back up. Yeah, Brady will set up submissions and it could get ugly quick. But, he's been training with Usman. I like that mentality about him. He's like, okay, this guy beat me. Let me go train with him to figure out where I need to get better. Yeah, I think I'm going to lean new Mansa Joaquin Buckley in this one. I think he gets the bounce-back win over Sean Brady and, continues to look for maybe a little run at welterweight. And then after that, we have another really good fight for this main card with Alexander Volkov versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Honestly, I've been seeing this fight for a good minute, but I haven't even stopped to take a break and really think of how I think this fight will go down. Both of these guys are really good. Volkov's been a mainstay at heavyweight for hella years now. Taking a few losses, but gotten some really good dubs along the way. Coming off the Almeida win, there was a split decision where he showed, some evolution to his wrestling and grappling game for real. He had the loss to Cyril Gane, which I think most of us can all agree was a fucking robbery. Cyril Gane somehow just is the UFC's one of their favorite boys. Volkov, I think, should have won that overall. But, still a close fight with one of the elites of the division. And then he had the big upset over Pavlovich. Pavlovich was coming after the loss to Tom, so He's been a little gun shy since, but that's still a good win. Pavlovich did beat Cortez Acosta. So, yeah, that says a lot about his skill set. And then, he Ezekiel choked, showing his submission game tied to Ivasa. And then he KO'd Alexander Romanov. So, Volkov is overall dangerous in, all areas of the game. He's really able to mix it up. He was a Bellator champion. He's 37 at this point. So, he's getting up there. He's really just trying to push for his last title shot and probably call it a career. But in this one, I think maybe I might go Cortez Acosta. I just liked his activity last year. He KO'd Derek Lewis in a weird one. He used to be a boxer as well. I remember watching back a few of his boxing fights earlier last year. And, he has good hands for sure. I think he didn't go all his way in boxing. He got KO'd and wasn't getting the fights that he wanted. So he said, let me give MMA a try. He has a lot of kids, too, that he's fighting for. And, he needs to get to that money. He needs them bonuses. And then he KO'd Shamil Gaziev. He KO'd Ante Delija. That was a crazy-ass fight where Delija finished Cortez due to an eye poke. And then the refs just watched back the footage, and all the good people who work at the UFC and were like, nah, that was an eye poke finish. We got to run that back. So they ended up running that one back. And yeah, Cortez was actually able to get the dub, which was crazy. And then, yeah, right before that, he had the loss to Pavlovich, which was, overall a close fight. I don't think I ever actually got to watch that one. I think it was on that China card that I didn't actually wake up to watch. So not even too sure exactly what happened in that one, but I've heard a lot of people say it was relatively close. But Big Pav was able to, get a crafty vet win over Cortez. But, he was pretty active at that point. And then before that, he beats Sergey Spivak, who's been, just in the rankings for so long, it feels like at this point. So he has some good wins. He's really come into his UFC career. It hasn't even been that long, but, he's just been so active and, taking fights against any guys. So he's for sure one of the BMFs of the heavyweight division. I think I first remember Cortez whenever he fought Arlovsky. And, yeah, he was overall beating Arlovsky, but it just felt like he wasn't showing the OG enough respect. He was emoting on bro and trying to do all this extra stuff. So I low-key wanted him to get slept. And then I think they gave him the Rebellis fight a little bit after that. into Spain. If any of y'all remember him, he was a big hyped up prospect, and Waldo was able to use his wrestling and just some of his smarts he's learned in his short MMA career and dispose of the Spain. And yeah, since then he's really made his name known. But yeah, I think in this one, I do think this is one of Waldo's harder fights at this weight class, just because even though he has good boxing, I feel like it's overall simple, and Volkov's length could be a problem for that. But for some reason, something tells me that Waldo will have enough to get it done. Maybe he can even try to work in some wrestling. He just feels like, he's with his shorter stature, he can get to the hips of Volkov and maybe try to land some ground and pound. But I think I'm going to lean decision just because Volkov is a tough Russian motherfucker. But yeah, I think Waldo will have enough to just get it done overall. And then going into the co-main, Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira. Man, this is a crazy fight that I never would have expected last year for this to be for the title. This soon, I expected both guys to be champions. I think I've watched all their fights in the UFC. Yeah, for both men, I believe I've watched all their fights in the UFC since I've been a fan. And man, both of them came onto the scene and were just so exciting at that 125-pound weight class. Josh Van, just that fearless persona and that boxing style, that pressure that he brings is so exciting. Remember telling some of my friends, I think leading into the Bruno Silva fight, yeah, he just gives me like that Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway type of persona, not exactly the same style, but, just the boxing, the grit, the banger fights. He just gave me a younger version of those two. Then Tatsuro Taira, man, I've been a big fan of just seeing all his fights over the past few years. He's just so cool. I'm happy, thank you. Shout out to bro. And yeah, just that grappling game. And just, he's really big for the weight class, I feel. He's 5'7" compared to Josh Van's 5'5". And, Josh Van feels like on the smaller side of a lot of the matchups he's in at flyweight. Maybe even like he could drop down to 115 if that was a weight class. And the reach, Tyra's gonna have a 5-inch reach advantage on bro. And man, yeah, this has just been such a tough fight to think on recently. I really, both are favorites of mine, and I like them a lot. I've been watching them for a while, but I feel like Tyra is the one that I've been leaning towards just because that grappling advantage, man. That Moreno fight was impressive. He was able to, his striking looked evolved. Yeah, he lost to Brandon Royval a few years back, but overall, he had Brandon in like some nasty submission attempts, and that's one of Brandon's best parts of his game is his jiu-jitsu and stuff, and just overall using his volume and his size at that weight class to overwhelm dudes. And yeah, Tyra, for him at that point in time, it was a little too much, but overall that was a really close fight. I still think it possibly could have gone either way, but Royval showed levels. And 2 fights ago, Josh Van did piece up Royval, and also a close fight. In the moment, I felt like Josh Van overall dominated, but I see some people think Royval could have got the fight until the last minute or so of the third round when Josh Van really put it on him. But I think overall, I think Josh Van did enough to win that fight pretty comfortably, even before he went on that crazy run at the end. But yeah, just that third round, whenever he started timing the oblique kick and all that good stuff. Yeah, Josh Van just such a skilled striker at such a young age. And, he's shown in other fights like the Ray Soria fight that he can have good takedown defense, and he can, really punish you. So if Tyra's shooting lazy takedowns and stuff, Josh Van for sure has the tools to punish him and make him pay. I think Josh Van does have more of that dog and that grit in him on his side, but Tyra, he's nobody to be played with either. Yeah, he's just, you can just tell martial arts is something that he loves, and, he's really been training hard for years at this point. But yeah, oh man, because I think this is for sure going to be a war. I could see it going to decision, honestly, even, and, they're just really battling it out. Tyra's taking him down and, trying to work for stuff, but at the same time, Josh Van, he's so young, he's so good, but, he's not very experienced in the jiu-jitsu game. He's worked, hella hard to, have punishing takedown defense. And, he's shown that in his past fights to be, something that he's really, really worked on. I think he got subbed maybe a few times in his earlier career. He only has 2 losses. So, yeah, subbed once early in his career, and he has a knockout against Charles Johnson, which, Johnson's really big for the 125 weight class. Josh smaller, so kind of makes sense. And it just seems like, the test to know if you got a good prospect on your hands if they get knocked out by Charles Johnson. Shout out to CJ. But yeah, overall, man, Tatsuro's so big. I just see him getting a sub late in the fight. I'm gonna go maybe like a round 4, possibly round 5, maybe even submission. Josh Van is just so tough, but man, it's so tough. Maybe round 3. I'm gonna leave it at round 4. I think Tyra submission. Josh Van, he's so skilled, so young. He'll for sure fight for the belt again, I think. But I think this might be Tatsuro Tyra's time. I think this might be the time we see him go on a little title run. I think his wrestling and his grappling overall is more dangerous than Pantoja's. I feel like Pantoja had really good wrestling, and he was really strong for the weight class and able to get guys down. But it would take all his energy just to hold them. At least the ones that, had good jiu-jitsu themselves. He was able to sub like Kai Kara France and Kaya Sakura. But, they were just kind of chumps once they're on their back and on the ground. When it came to the Moreno fight, the Ursig fight, and the Royval fight, I was very unimpressed. I feel like everybody just started riding his bandwagon just because he was getting wins. But once they were calling him one of the most skilled fighters, thought we had to pump the brakes a little bit. Because, I feel like, those 3 guys I named, they actually know what to do on the ground. And, it felt like Pantoja had to literally use all his energy just to hug them. Like, he was literally being just a nut hugger. Crotch sniffer, as they say. But, I feel like Tyra is literally like the evolved version of Pantoja, Doesn't have as much power in his hands, but he's still really big, so he can crack up. He dropped Park. He's shown, he can really bang in there. And I feel like his striking is way more technical. He tries to be more technical at least, and works behind a good jab, has powerful kicks. So yeah, I feel like overall he's just like the new Pantoja, more evolved version. I think he's gonna go on a little run here. Josh Van, he's so young as well, so he'll have time to get better, and I can even see him taking this fight. He can overwhelm Tyra on the feet, possibly, and even put him away. But yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna lean Tyra in this one. I'm gonna lean the "I'm so happy, thank you" to get it done. Yeah, I think submission. Just Tyra or Josh Van hasn't really been taken to those deep waters necessarily, and a specific choke, man. I'm even trying to think because I feel like he'll be trying not to give up his back at all costs. I can't even remember off the top of my head what some of Tyra's best chokes are. He had the face crank on Park. He had the weird, and then he left hook Carlos Hernandez. Yeah, I don't even know off the top of my head what type of submission I can see him getting him with. Maybe like a Darce or an Anaconda. If Josh is really trying hard to stuff a takedown and leaves his neck open, I could see something like that happening. And then going into the big one of the card, Khamzat Chimaev against Sean Strickland. Man, boys, once we're sat down watching this fight, it's going to be, just a crazy moment in time. Seeing these two get to fight each other, and if being for the middleweight strap is just crazy. Sean Strickland, I'll start out by saying that, he's shown not necessarily to have the best takedown defense, but really good get-ups. In the Dricus fight, Dricus was able to beat him to the hips and, drag him down. But Sean Strickland, he you can tell he's spent the time on the mats, done his jiu-jitsu work, even though he likes to do the man dance, fucking throw his hands and, teep and jab for 5 rounds. He's for sure, done his jiu-jitsu and wrestling training over the years. He's a real mixed martial artist in that sense, but he kind of elects to just use his striking more. And Khamzat, I think at times maybe his striking can be even underrated by some people. It's not his natural talent. You can tell watching some of his fights, but he's put in the work to have decent boxing. And, he has decent pop behind his hands. At times he can find, them one-shot KOs. The uppercut against Ikram. The, knockout over GM3 that he got early in his UFC career. So, he can pick his shots very well and, really, rock dudes when they're unexpecting him to throw. In the Gilbert fight, too, he was throwing bombs. But I think that's, that Gilbert fight, bringing that up, I think he was hurting Gilbert with the jab. And I think he got a little overzealous, and that's why it kind of turned into a war. Plus, Gilbert's just like submission attempts off his back, had Khamzat a little weary to go to the ground with him. But I feel like in some of his fights, he gets defensively irresponsible in the boxing. Once he's, if you can make it a scrap, maybe make him a little tired. He kind of, whenever you get one on him, he wants to get it back right away. So, it leads for him to get doinged and just bonked on the side of the head and, just start getting tagged up, maybe in that Usman fight and that Burns fight. But, yeah, in this one, I don't see Khamzat getting, super reckless and, allowing himself to get tagged up because he knows that's literally Strickland's main and whole game plan. I feel like he's, for sure put the time in the hours. He's surrounded by a good team, really good coaches. And, his cardio is next level. I just see him, wearing Strickland down. And we're going to get an end still on Saturday. And eventually getting that sub. I thought he would sub Dricus too. But, now looking back, Dricus was able to come up with a game plan to just not give up his back. And defend, a lot of the submission attempts Khamzat was trying to set up even. But, just being put in crucifix for a whole fight is not a good look. You're just getting dominated at that point. It's like, congratulations, buddy, you didn't get subbed, but you literally just have a man on top of you who could destroy you if this was a street fight. And yeah, I don't see Sean Strickland having the same type of submission defense as Dricus did. I know his get-ups are really good, so maybe he'll make Khamzat have to work really for some takedowns, and maybe Khamzat will pull back kind of like Drakus did, not wanting to overextend himself early at times. But nah, I think over time he'll eventually just get Strickland down. He'll keep shooting. Even if Strickland's getting up, shoot another shot, kind of like he even did in the Whitaker fight. I think Whitaker stuffed the first shot, got the underhook, and Khamzat, grabbed for that ankle and shot another one and was able to set up the submission. Man, I could really even see Khamzat doing it in round one. It feels like all his fights, he's at, he could possibly get that round one submission. But I'm going to go with like round two, I think. I think he gets it done pretty fast. I don't think he wants to play with Strickland and, really allow Strickland maybe try to catch win later in the fight. So I think he tries to get it done early, round 2 or 3 possibly. But yeah, I think I just see him wearing on Strickland, slowly bringing him down, slowly lowering his gas tank. Strickland's been talking a big game about he's going to shoot, bro, and like all this stuff. I don't know, trying to get into Khamzat's head a lot and, sell the fight and stuff as Strickland does. But yeah, I think he's big talk. Hopefully the fight does big numbers. It's not even pay-per-views anymore, so who really gives a fuck? But I guess for Paramount's sake. But yeah, I think overall, he's not going to be able to cash the checks that his mouth wrote in this one. Just Khamzat's skill, I think, is on a different level than any of these guys for real at this point. And yeah, I think it's going to be a long time before we see Khamzat ever get beaten, and probably never. I think he might be one of those guys who retires undefeated. We might even see him try to go for a 205 run after this, so I wouldn't really mind it. He's been undefeated in his UFC run, so I think he has the ability to call his shots now. But yeah, I think overall, guys, I think Khamzat will stay and still in this one and get that sub. Shout out to Sean Strickland, for building his way back and, being able to sell the fight. So made him pass over Imavov and stuff. And, Khamzat didn't really want to fight his brother in Imavov, so I can respect that. But yeah, overall, I think Khamzat will get this dub. But yeah, guys, I think that's all the breakdown for me for today. We went over the whole card. This is a really stacked card from top to bottom. They've given us for this UFC 328 in New Jersey, I believe. Yeah, it's going to be Newark, New Jersey. So hopefully anybody who's able to go out and watch this one live is able to, experience a crazy event. But yeah, guys, we got some banger fights, some, crazy fighters on this one. We'll see what parlays we can cook up and everything. Hope you guys do enjoy watching the fights, getting your drink on or whatever you like doing while you watch fights. But yeah, guys, I think that's all for me for this discussion. If there was anything that you thought like, man, hell no, that is not how that fight's going, or man, you got me fucked up, just let me know, down below why you think so, and we'll start up some discussions. We'll see how this shit really plays out. But yeah, I think that's all the insight I have for today, boys. Hopefully, shout out to my boy Khamzat, shout out Josh Van and Tyra. Love both of y'all, but only one can be champ, so may the best man win. And shout out to all the other fighters on this card, man. We are in for a good card this Saturday. But yeah, boys, that's all I have for today. Leave a little comment below, leave a like if you want or not, drop a sub, and we're gonna have more content coming up soon. So yeah, guys, that's all for me. Peace out.